things that we've been through. Life is better with you.
Hey guys, I'm Brian.
And I'm Allison.
And this is
Our Life in Front of the Bleachers.
What time of year is it?
Playoffs.
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 It's that time.
It is. So this time of season kind of switches a little bit for us, I think. Well, for me it does. Where it's not just regular because we play every week until we don't. So it's a little different. And this weekend we are just waiting to see who we play.
Yeah, that's a difficult process because in some states, the system that was set up, you could be very predictive on who you're going to play.
Mhm.
And then,
Because we would know, and when we played in other states, we would know a couple weeks in where we were. Like
you know
every week,
exactly
you knew exactly where you
what
were.
the scenarios were and how you'd have to fit in. Here, all you kind of know is if you're in or not. You don't know exactly who you're playing. You don't know what the setup's going to be. So it's a little bit more ambiguous, but it does frustrate you on some end. But, this time of year, in years past, we've only not gone to playoffs a couple of years since we've been coaching. And those weeks before the end of the season were senior nights or senior weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we could celebrate the seniors. It's been a little more anticlimactic when you know you're going to the playoffs and you expect to, win some in there. So you don't know exactly when to celebrate your seniors because you don't want to do it too early and put a finality on something that's not final. You also want to have a new, thought process of a new beginning when you're going into the playoffs. You don't want to keep, bringing up and hashing up that it could be the end. So you kind of have to flirt with it a little bit on what you're going to do to celebrate the seniors. Still look forward and keep processing that you're in a tournament now. One loss and you're gone.
Yeah, and it's hard. I think as a mom or as a coach's wife that if you do lose, that's it. You're done. It comes to an abrupt halt. The whole thing, like what you're so used to, it just stops, and you kind of have to find yourself after that, like how we fit back together as a family, what we do. But even that's the way it is going into playoffs is you don't know who you're playing. You're preparing for one team, you think, and then it switches.
And you start all over. But
yeah.
Well, I mean, we as coaches sometimes, we're guilty of it, of being able to be predictive, not necessarily, the brackets and all, but when we are matched up with who we are, we can figure out, okay, this is a good matchup or this is not a good matchup. And then you can kind of prepare yourself for if the kids don't play a certain way, it's going to be over. Or we have a little bit of room here, and if we don't play perfect, we still got a chance to win. So those kind of thought processes for a coach, you don't ever want to sound negative and you don't ever want to sound pessimistic, but it's the reality of it. Sometimes in high school football, we don't get to recruit, nor have I ever. I don't go out of trying to get kids from other districts to come fill voids that we have. You play with what you have, and you try to develop the character and you develop the players the very best you can with the resources that you have. But, many of the places that we've been, we're short-staffed. Our coaches are coaching all levels of football, the JV and the varsity, coaching ninth graders all the way through the seniors, and we're trying to develop them all, and we're all working in the weight room. We're all coaching on both sides of the football. And, sometimes when you go against teams that have a multitude of coaches and the resources and the history and some of that, you're kind of fighting an uphill battle. So sometimes you pull for people that you're going to have, like resumes. So at least you're fighting the same battle sometimes. And that doesn't mean we haven't beaten some teams we shouldn't have beaten. We beat a team when we were in Virginia that was ridiculously loaded and came in there with 3 charter buses. And I remember, so my dad's a college football coach and his son's playing, Parker's playing. And Dad came down on game day, and he got there a little early as the other team was arriving. And they came in their 3 big charter buses from a big area with a lot of professional athletes' sons on the team because it was right up there near D.C. And all these kids were, getting off the bus, and Dad came over to me as we were, kind of getting ready behind the bleacher area, and he's like, Brian, have you seen this team? I said, Dad, yeah, I've seen them. I watched them on film. He said, no, have you seen this team? And I said, yeah. I said, they got some players. He said, Bud, those aren't players. Those are men. I'm leaving. I'm not staying around for this bloodbath.
What happened?
Oh, we gave them the business. Our kids played hard,
That
rallied
was
hard. It was
his
a
senior
fun.
year?
It was.
Because we actually, so his Parker's senior year, we had senior night the week before that. So we had a parent that had like those balloon arches that she had
That's
a
right.
job. And so we had all those balloon arches still. So it was like we got a second senior night that
We got
night.
to,
So we
yes.
had all that for them.
But it was just, sometimes when you go in those games, you feel as though you have to play perfectly to combat the tradition of the other school, to combat the size of the kids, the size of the school, whatever it is. And it's more about the belief of the kids. And sometimes when you play, above your level so much during the season, your kids and coaches get worn out. And when you get to that final stage, they just don't have anything left. You've fought every single week just to keep it afloat or just to get it to a point where you can compete, and the kids are worn out.
But I really do think you do a great job at trying to revitalize the kids and yourselves and your coaches going into that playoff season. Like it's a new season and it's a fresh start. And I think you have fun with the kids going into that week. This year is a little different because we have an extra week between our last game and our first playoff game. So we did have a bye week, which usually we do not. We usually roll right in on that Saturday knowing.
But we play against teams that have 1,000 more students or more than that. And our kids play both sides of the football, both
Yeah.
offense and defense, special teams. Invariably, those schools don't have that. And our kids get physically, mentally, emotionally worn out from having to compete against those schools week in and week out. And the injuries pile up. And this open week was great for, I think, a lot of people, me included. I think, like you said, it's a great start for a new beginning. And you sell the kids, you sell the coaches on all the lessons that you've learned throughout the 10 games that preceded it all are just that. They're lessons because everybody's 0-0 now. Everybody's undefeated and nobody has a win. And then you build your momentum and it's about matchups. It's just like a marriage. Not every marriage holds. Fortunate enough, you got a good matchup. We stuck together. So how many years are we on now?
27.
Well, see, there was a question mark at the end of
I
that.
know.
So we
I'm
got
like,
some
we're going on 28, but together, we've been together on 30.
Yeah, so 30 years. That's a heck of a matchup. So a lot of new beginnings in there, weren't there? From all the moves to various seasons to
Every single playoff season.
yeah, and then the trials and tribulations of life. So we've done remarkably well in some settings that probably wouldn't allow it to be. But you helped will some of that too. Just the culture that you helped bring, the positivity. The kids know they better treat you a certain way. And I'm hoping that exemplifies how they're supposed to treat women their whole lives. But as you go into these playoff moments, we try to bring as much pride to maybe some kids that have never really experienced success and then be able to have some lasting legacy. We were fortunate this past week that we had, 16, 17, 18 kids that were home either from college or they're working or whatever, and they're alumni who had played for me over the last 5 or 6
It was
years.
so good to see them all.
Well, and they took a lot of pride in coming out there, and you could feel the passion in their tone because when they started at our school, football, we had 38 total kids in the program, and we're going against those schools that have 2,500 students, and they fought, and they made us competitive. They got us to
We had
playoffs in year
Florence
2.
and
Oh,
COVID all through those kids. And I did say it on my Facebook post. That group of kids, and I've said it to you before, they are completely different than any other group that we've had. And I love every group that we have. But that group, they were all friends. ninth through seniors, and you couldn't tell a difference between, I mean, other than their size, but grade wise, and they pushed each other in a good way, and they held each other accountable.
And that was the beauty, and that
It
still
was
is the
just
beauty of ours,
completely different than any other group that we'd
and
had.
the diversity of the group. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
not just a bunch of white kids or black kids or Hispanic kids. Like everything you could think of, they all function together, and we had to run them out of the
They
facilities.
loved being together.
I
And
remember we used to do the playoff parties, you remember, and we
oh
would
yeah,
have it on the Saturday when they were getting ready to reveal the brackets,
they
and the
didn't.
brackets would be revealed about 2 o'clock, and they wouldn't leave. We'd be
No,
there
they're
till
still
6 or 7 o'clock
sitting down there on the field
and playing
talking and
around
playing.
and playing cornhole or playing football
Yeah.
or frisbee, whatever we just had to run them out because they just enjoyed competing. And that was the legacy that they wanted to convey to the players, was that albeit your team's really young, we want you to value how much that we invested and what we want to see from y'all to carry on these traditions. And I think it had a huge impact on our kids. And you would think that's in a 15, 20-minute session of kids that are only 4 or 5 years older than you coming out and talking wouldn't have that big an impact. But I think it had so much more of an impact than this old fart talking so much and throwing out a bunch of words they couldn't care
I
less
had a
about.
proud mama moment for every single one that spoke.
Yeah, you could recall all those moments and those
Hmm.
kids. And, we got some kids that are playing in college and doing those things that weren't there, and they would have had certainly great words to add as well. But it was just neat. And then they stuck around. They played some backyard football with some of our kids.
And
And
it
they
was
got,
just like it was like they were back in high school when they scored that touchdown. They all went cheered together. I mean, I loved it. I loved seeing it. Just warmed my heart.
well, and you could tell how they missed some of the camaraderie. It was like a little reunion for
Yeah.
them. It was a little reunion for us. But you could see when they were making plays and such, they were just reminiscing the same things that they had endured through high school and maybe overcome, and sharing those stories. You could
Hmm.
just see the relief that they'd been carrying some of that burden with them for several months, if not years, of, man, I do miss this. And I miss the camaraderie and the family atmosphere that you and I have helped create. And I was proud, not just of the young people that were taking it in and really trying to, exemplify what they were trying to give to them, but just those guys that took a vested interest and took time out of their schedules just to come hang out with our guys. And I'm sure they'll be back as we go through the playoffs. But that's what this time of year brings. It brings new beginnings, but lessons from the past and hope in the future.
Mhm.
Because if you can do something today to make your future better, then why not? And then you can learn from whatever you did before that wasn't great, or even if it was great, why not learn from it to make your future brighter? So I was very, very proud of how the kids responded this week. They didn't react to, having a subpar for us season, but it was kind of what we anticipate as a coaching staff because we were so young. But it was fun. It was. And now you get to go through this playoff venture, and it's week to week and stress to stress, and knowing who you're going to play next, and waiting on Friday night to see the results to see who you're going to play next, and going through that bracket. And
So we're still waiting.
yeah, I mean, we're going to wait for a little while, but
So we decided to do a little video to keep his mind off of things.
well, there's not anything I can do. I can't prepare for five
I know, but
teams.
you just sit there. It's just like waiting for a girl to call or respond to it, like her boyfriend.
What are we talking about here? We've been
But
together
it's
30
like,
years. What are
I
we
know,
talking?
but
I've
it's,
forgotten what that feels like. I
you
don't
still
remember.
give me
Oh,
butterflies.
you hear that? Still got it. Still got it. Rico Suave here.
Well,
But no, we've gone through this week. They have all those predictions, and we've gone through playing one team, then it went to another team, then it went to another team, then back to another team, and then
and he
now they're
texts me
still.
every single time, just like, oh no.
We got to do it again. I got to go through, try to figure this mess out again. But it's just tis the season. It's exciting, but it can be exhausting too. And when you're short staffed and you don't have a lot of coaches, we have 7 coaches on staff, and most of the schools that we played against all year long were in the upper teens or 20s, and they're delegating work. Or our guys are doing both sides of the football and
So
taking care of the
practice looks a
laundry.
little different and all that.
Yeah, and you just worry, we're just not as prepared as the next. But then when you get in the playoffs, you're supposed to play against schools that are like you in size and hopefully population, but they're still schools with massive traditions and They have their staff intact. They have everything that they need, and you're gonna have to go in there and play really well in order to beat those people. But that's the excitement of it all.
Yep. So we will just hang tight and wait and hope to play another week.
Well, let's hope that it brings some sanity in the household and some happy, joyful moments too. Because the longer we play, the happier this guy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were quick to. Well, playoff style, this is.
Our life in front of the bleachers.
Take care, guys. Bye bye.